Good evening and welcome to this week's episode of Coach's Corner. My name is Dwayne Dwyer. I go by the Mindset Coach,
My name is the Uncle Junior, and I go by the Consistency Coach.
and we are your coaches for Coach's Corner. As I always like to start off these conversations, if you are here and you don't plan to do anything different as it pertains to the information that we're going to share with you, then you might be in the wrong place. However, if you are here because you want to make a difference in your life and the lives of the people that you know, love, and care about, if you want to be impactful and leave a legacy, then you're definitely in the right place. It was destined for you to be in your chair listening to our voices on this evening. So that being said, we want to welcome you to this evening's show. Speaking of welcome, I would like to go ahead and speak to my brother, the Uncle Junior, the consistency coach. Good to see you, brother. How are things going with you?
Man, things going good on my end. Life is well, life is swell. All things are good. I want to say hello to you, but even before I really talk to you and we get into this, I just want to let the chat know that here today I found out firsthand that, believe it or not, um, Dwayne Dwyer, the mindset coach, is human, ladies and gentlemen. So about 30 minutes ago, yada yada yada. That's all I'm gonna say. Coach knows exactly what I'm talking about. But ladies and gentlemen, for some of y'all just like me who put Coach up there at a level and think that he don't do no wrong, Coach is not perfect, and I found that out today. So, and I was shocked. But bro, I am
Listen,
I am happy, and I say that to say that I am happy to be here with you this evening, and I am happy to work with someone who reeks excellence. So when you work with somebody, or you have a colleague, and they are constantly doing the right thing, and you don't see a lot of mistakes and stuff like that, is very good. It keeps me on my toes. But no buts. I found out Coach was human, and that's all I'm gonna say about that. It's an inside joke.
I don't care. I'll tell it, bro. Listen, I'm open book over here, bro. But no, I
Yeah.
thank you for saying that. And for those of you who are listening, it's like, what is he talking about? I totally dropped the ball. Like, this was my week. And I was thinking one thing. The show was already done. I'm thinking it's Garfield week. We had already did the show. We had already edited the show. The show's already
Mhm.
loaded, right? But my bad. Yes, all like that.
And yeah, and to say that it's like, we've been doing this show for a long time. This is like the 40 something episode, actually the 45th episode. And between this and yeah, the Empowering Perspective podcast, Elevated Dialogue, we got, close to 3 years up here. And I can say that I can count on less than five fingers how many times either one of us, I think, have dropped the ball when it comes to being prepared for the show and something like that. And I just want to say to the chat out there, if you have somebody, a colleague that you work with, and y'all have a good working relationship, you are blessed.
Absolutely.
Because a lot of people don't have that. So I can say firsthand that it's an honor to work with somebody, and this is a lot easier working with someone who have similar mindsets and goals, and who pulls their weight. It's nothing worse than being in a relationship with anybody, whether it be a colleague, whether it be a loved one that is not feeling, you don't feel like, or you don't feel. Let me start away. It's nothing worse than being in a relationship with someone who doesn't pull their weight.
Yeah.
Period.
Yeah.
So I'm
'Cause
glad that you pull your weight.
no, I
Makes
mean,
things
trust
a lot
me.
easier.
I think, and I say this all the time, and I like to be an example of the things that I say. And I think it's very difficult, especially in the digital space, for anyone to ever witness an example of the thing that most talking heads say. And so when we talk about every relationship has responsibility, every person has a responsibility in the relationships that they're in. But that's what I'm talking about. Like every person has a responsibility. I can't. I would be grossly in error if, based upon our conversation about Coach's Corner, we had already decided what it was going to be, and then it's like, okay, well, let me sit back and see what Garfield's going to do. Let me sit back and see what Garfield's going to do. No, that's wrong. You know what I'm saying? Like I have to be in there. Like it's something that we both have to do. But here's the thing that I like about our relationship. Our relationship, and I think this is a rarity. We hold the space of commitment. And I want to say that again, we have a tendency to hold the space of commitment, because even in that little small moment where I had a mental lapse, we was like, okay, give me 30 minutes. You say you need an hour? No, I didn't want to take up a whole hour because like I've always told you, I respect your time with your wife. Don't need an hour. Give me 30 minutes. I'm over here banging away. You know what I'm saying? 'Cause I'm in my mind, I got to hurry up because I don't want to waste his time. And so, clockwork, he shows back up, and here we are, we're ready to go. So I think
Yeah.
that's another thing as well. Like, to your point, saying you recognize I'm human, right? But ideally, no one is going to do things perfectly, right? And at the end of the day, whatever measure of excellence they have displayed, that's not going to be a constant every time. Every now and then, there's going to be some dip. You know what I'm saying? But what happens when the dip happens? Do we start acting a particular type of way? Oh, well, you were supposed to do this and you were supposed to. No, that's not helping solve any problems whatsoever.
Hmm.
Hold the space of commitment, right? If at all possible, see how you can help that person get to where they're supposed to be to, and then press forward with what the original plan was. So to you, I want to say I appreciate that. I appreciate you holding the space of commitment so that we could have this show this evening.
Man, it's easy, and it's good, and I like it. I don't use the word feelings a lot, but it does feel good to have a relationship with someone who is just as committed as you are. You know what I mean? It's a lot easier. A lot of us have been in relationships with all types of people, and you like, man, this is a good relationship. Everything going good. When I call, he call. He text, I text. A lot of things are give and take, but you know exactly how it is when you feel like it's been drained, where you like, man, I'm doing a lot of this extra work and it don't feel like the other person is really doing their part. And a lot of times that's when stuff starts to happen right
Yep.
in there because relationships at the beginning, usually both people are doing their part. But
Yeah, man.
along the way, usually what happens is somebody stops holding up their end of the deal. Usually one person changes or adjusts how they used to move, and that's
Yeah.
where the problems come in sometime.
I made an old
You
song about
can't be give me everything, for the first year, and then all of a sudden after that you start giving me rations. It's like,
right.
man, we didn't
That's
sign up for this,
yeah,
you
that's not
know?
good.
Yeah, let's not do that.
Yeah, that's
So
not good at all.
yeah.
Man, you just described a lot of people's relationships just now. I do
Man,
apologize.
a lot.
Hmm.
I've been in those relationships, and I'm not even talking about just relationships with any significant other. Just relationships with people where it's been one-sided, and even with family, and sometimes the family one is the hard one. Sometimes
Absolutely.
the family one is the hard one.
It most certainly is.
Yeah, I'm in
Yep.
relationships right now with people in my family, and it's pretty one-sided. But
Mm,
boss, that's my dad. He told me a long time ago, is you want a relationship with somebody, you can't focus on their part. You have to focus on just on your part. And that's hard to accept sometimes because, if I want a relationship with coach and I'm always calling coach, but coach don't never call me. The only time we interact is if I call coach or if I text coach. Well, even if I want the relationship, then maybe that's how it has to be right now. Every time I talk to coach and every time I text him, he texts back. Every time I call him, he pick up. So maybe I shouldn't be as focused on who's texting who or who's calling who. And maybe I should focus on the time that we have together when I text him or when I call him. However, that part is hard sometimes because you feel like you're the only one who's putting in the relationship. So, and I don't even know why I went here, man. I know we talking about transforming mindsets tonight, but we 10 minutes in and we ain't even jumped on we ain't even started with the first question. So I hope I ain't take us too far left, but
how do you do that before we even start the show?
I don't
Like,
even know what I did.
no, okay. If you don't know what you did, let me tell you. And I like the fact that you went there, and it really and you're right, it has nothing to do with what we're talking about, or it
Hmm.
does. Do you know how many people struggle in the space of relationship because they count what they do and
Mm.
compare it to the person that they're trying to be in relationship with?
Makes me
I mean,
guilty.
I'm just saying,
Yep.
everybody does it until they grow out of doing it. But I think what you said was the most perfect thing that equates to relationship. Instead of me looking at how many times I text or how many times I call, why don't I learn to appreciate the fact that every time I text, they text right back. Every time I call, they pick up. Or if they're not available, they call right back. See, that's kind of like my thing. And again, I apologize, people. This has nothing to do with what we're talking about, but I think it's important for us to understand this. If we spend more time than if we spend more time appreciating than looking to be validated, because that's really what it is. If I am looking for you to reciprocate at the same level that I am doing, like I'm counting how many times I text you, comparing it to the last time that you text me first. Well, I'm looking to validate the fact that we have a relationship that lines up with my thoughts. But if I look at a relationship not necessarily about who does what first or who does this thing and I did it at this level and you did it at this level, why don't I look at the fact that there's effort on both behalves that are actually being exhibited? And in the space of what I do, that's called responsibility. In the space in the space of looking at what you do, that's called appreciation. And if I can and if I can do that, because I like you say your dad name was Boss,
Yeah.
very intelligent man. I love that. That was probably that's probably the most profound statement that most children never get. They never get that statement. If you want relationship, you need to be in the space of responsibility. Pay more attention to the thing that you're responsible for doing as opposed to judging what the other person is. Because think about it. If both people do that, if both people are responsible for what they are supposed to be doing and not doing that all the time,
Mhm.
then don't you think it will work itself out? Because I like to say, I just have this philosophy. Like I give an A for effort. If you put forth effort, you get an A in my book.
Mhm.
There is no B, there is no C, there is no D. Effort A. I'm not looking for perfection because I'm not perfect, like we just like we just talked about previously.
Yeah.
So if I'm looking at you through the lens of perfection, now the only thing I'm doing is judging what you're doing because it has not met my standard of expectation. Be responsible for what you know to do, and then we both can grow in knowing together. But again, I'm sorry.
No.
That's why you got the gold nugget, bro. Because you hitting
Yeah.
home run before we even started talking.
Man. Right? But even though I knew that, I didn't apply it. And I still find myself doing it sometimes. And I like you said, I think it's kind of natural. And like you said, until we grow out of it. And even sometimes when we're over it and we think we've grown out of it, there still may be some sprinkles of that old mindset there. So I think even though maybe the topic that we're talking about was off subject, but I think what we are talking about is transforming mindsets for extraordinary achievements. Like because my mindset has shifted, you know what I mean? Those relationships have gotten better. And even I remember one of those relationships was very one-sided.
Hmm.
And I told Shell about it not too long ago. And she was like, "What? For real?" And I was like, "Yeah." And that was what Charlie Jordan probably in here, but I'm just gonna say it. Like a long time ago, it was one sided when it came to the communication and stuff. And I don't,
Hmm.
we have a great relationship right now, so I don't think she'll mind me sharing this, because she's is a person who understands that we all have a story and that we grow and we evolve in our thinking and everything like that. So, but there was a time I remember, way back in the day. You remember so some of y'all old folks out there, like me and Coach, might know this. Y'all remember back in the day where we had 1-800 call ATT, or you had to call
Yep.
people collect. Now this was before we had these cell phones. So some of y'all young folk out there, if y'all listen to this, y'all might not understand this. But back in the day, we couldn't just pick up a phone and just call somebody.
Mm-mm.
If you didn't have long distance on your phone or whatever like this, then you had to pay to call somebody. So I was
That's
in the
right.
barracks and I used to have to call home. So I remember having a conversation. My mom is like, um, "Well, how come you don't call more or whatever like this?" It's like I every time we talk, I call. It's like why you don't call me? You call, the other sisters or you go visit the other siblings. Why you don't do the same thing? And the reality of it is, first of all, um, it ain't for me to be looking at If it was money, you'd be calling it pocket watching, but it ain't up to me to determine how much time she's spending with my other siblings. That ain't got nothing to do with me.
Yeah.
Maybe the relationship that she have with my other siblings is better, and maybe that's why she want to spend more time with them than me. I
Sure.
ain't no problem with that, So um we spend a lot of time together now, and I visited her, not too long ago, a few weeks ago or so. But our relationship have changed to whereas, at one time I thought it was very one-sided. I thought that she should call more, text more, but not text, call more and different things
Hmm.
like that. But she gave me her reasons and stuff like that. And even though I didn't agree with them, those were her reasons and those were her that's her perspective on why she did or didn't do what she did. And I had to respect that. But
Yeah.
unfortunately, now the way it is, I call her sometime, text her sometime. Even though we may not text each other individually, sometimes we're in a group chat, with my other siblings. So we
Yeah.
still are in constant communication with each other all the time. And, a lot of that has to do was because, and I'm not saying this that it was all on me, but I at some point I took the road to whereas I have to stay in contact, even though because boss told me you want a relationship with somebody and you want a relationship with your mama, then you got to put forth your effort, even if she don't text you, even if she don't call you back. You
Yeah.
want to talk to your mama, then you call her. So yeah, now we got a great relationship. So
And I think as people are listening to this, right? I think you're probably getting some of the questions like, well, how long do I keep doing that if the person doesn't do this or all
yeah.
this other stuff, right? You. These are some of the questions that I believe that are formulating in people's mind like that,
Hmm.
like that. Well, I think the fact that that question is a question right now means that you're not necessarily putting enough thought into the talking point that you're hearing right now. Because if I am still trying to figure out the escape route, I have not accepted responsibility of what I'm supposed to do. It's like
Hmm.
saying, it's like saying, I have this job or whatever the case may be, and I have this probationary period, and I have to do this work within the scope of the probationary period based upon what I am supposed to do according to the job description. But these people, blah, 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 right? My coworkers. So I can tell you what my coworkers doing, but my probationary period has absolutely nothing to do with them.
Yep.
And so when I get that meeting with my supervisor to kind of do my evaluation at the end of my probationary period, I am talking about them, but he is talking about me. Well, if I focus more on what I'm doing, then I can't really see what they're doing unless what they're doing facilitates what I'm doing. Now I have the opportunity to go to them and talk to them and say, hey, how can I help you do this faster or better or whatever that looks like? So, again, our quick thoughts about how I can escape it may be evidence that I'm not putting enough energy on what I'm supposed to do responsibility wise
Hmm.
and then be there. So again, thinking over here, how can I escape means that the escape is still available in my mind in the midst of responsibility. How can those two thoughts be existing at the exact same time? Why don't I put more energy in responsibility as opposed to escape? Just again, just something to think about as we're
Yeah.
going here, because I do believe you're right. I do believe in the midst of what you're saying that we are still on task. I
Yeah.
think we're still talking about, and I don't want to focus on transforming mindsets
Mm.
during this conversation. I want to focus on unlocking your potential.
Ooh, yeah.
Because if we change the focus to that, and this is why I love talking about focus. If we change the focus to unlocking your potential, I believe that should reveal that everybody, I don't care who you are, everybody has what I tend to call untapped potential. There's some things in you that you have in you that you don't know that's in you that can allow you to accomplish some things that you did not believe that you can accomplish. And then in those accomplishments, then we can say that they're extraordinary because they were outside of your thought process. Well, I know that word is pronounced extraordinary, I got it. But it's extraordinary when you look at the word, right? It's outside of the ordinary. It's not average. And I think if if I'm just being honest, I think we're talking to a bunch of people here that don't want to be average
Mm.
because I don't think average people watch the show. I'm just saying, people who are pursuing
Yeah.
average, they're not watching. They're not watching Coach's Corner. I think everybody who's watching Coach's Corner wants to be above average. I think they want to be impactful and leave a legacy and things of that nature. Those are the things they want to do. They're not dependent on anyone to do it for them. So that's why I think focusing on unlocking your potential is important. Are you ready to get this party started? Because
Man, I am ready. We already cooking, man. We
man,
started, we came in 30 minutes late, and then we spent 30 minutes backstage talking.
I don't
So
know, man. You came in hot. I'm still
I'm
lukewarm. So
ready,
let me step my game up,
ready.
man. Let me step my game up.
Get a nap.
Have you ever felt like there are parts of yourself that you avoid acknowledging or expressing? Many of us grapple with the aspects of our personality that we might consider unflattering or uncomfortable, leading to an inner critic that affects our well being. In this conversation, we'll explore the concept of shadow work, a powerful tool for self discovery and growth that encourages us to confront and integrate these hidden elements of your identity. By understanding shadow work, we can unlock deeper insights into ourselves and foster a more authentic and fulfilling life. So, that being said, I kind of want to go back to a talking point we had before because we touched on it previously and we touched on it and we got off on it. And I'm not saying that we're going to dive deep into the abyss as it pertains to it, but I really want to look at how neuroplasticity and identity reconstruction plays hand in hand because I think it's important for us to understand. Now, prior to us getting into it, because like I've said before, and if you guys have never heard me say it before, I believe a lot of us not structure, we suffer from what I believe is a false identity. In other words, we have taken on an identity that something or someone has given us. And then we struggle in different aspects of life because we're trying to figure out how can I express this identity while being accepted at the same time. So when it comes down to neuroplasticity is the brain's remarkable ability to recognize itself by forming neural connections throughout life. This process allows the brain to adapt to new experiences, learn new information, and recover from injuries. Neuroplasticity occurs at various levels, from cellular changes involving individual neurons to large scale cortical remapping. And so there are three features when it comes down to it. You have synaptic plasticity, you have functional plasticity, and structural plasticity. Right? Synaptic plasticity involves changes in the strength of the synapses. So if you remember the last time we talked, I talked about the more we practice a thing, the stronger it becomes. The less we practice a thing, the weaker it becomes. And so that's what more or less synaptic plasticity is all about. So the repeated activity makes it stronger and it allows for easier signals to pass between the neurons. Functional plasticity refers to the brain's ability to move functions from damaged areas to undamaged areas. So this notion of plasticity is happens or is tapped into when injuries occur, and then last is structural plasticity, which involves physical changes to the brain structure in response to learning and experience. Now, why am I saying all that? Just simply because I want everybody to have kind of like a brief understanding of what neuroplasticity is and how it can be used or how it's used to reconstruct our identity. Because remember, a false identity practice will create stronger pathways, and then it becomes habitual. So it requires us to change a neural pathway or a way of thinking or seeing or viewing a thing and practicing that thing in order to reconstruct a new pathway. So I did a whole lot of talking just now, bro, to kind of set the conditions to get to where we are right now. How can understanding the power of neuroplasticity or how can understanding neuroplasticity empower you to rewrite not just your habits but the very identity you associate with your past failures and successes?
Sheesh, there was a lot. And I'm thinking about this, and I'm looking at the question again. I'm gonna read it one more time for myself to make sure that I got all my thoughts. So, how can understanding neuroplasty empower you to rewrite not just your habits, but the very identity you associate with your past failures and success? I think how it can help empower you to rewrite is, I think it can help you build or create more, what's the right word? More like more stronger or better habits, like a better habit, like that kind of identifies with kind of sort of who you already are. So like, one habit, everybody got a habit, get up in the morning and we brush our teeth, right? But that's like a surface level habit that we do every single day just to maintain our health and stuff like this. But a conscious or very well thought out habit that really helps you with your day-to-day life or just helps you in life in general, I think it's something that can come from that. When you have a, and all habits are important, and what am I trying to say? I guess when we look at habits, I guess I want to say that there's levels to them, right? And maybe that's where I was going to it. So like when you're brushing your teeth, not saying that it's a low level habit, but it's a low thinking habit where you don't have to put a lot of energy into do it. You just get up in the morning and you brush your teeth. It's not that hard. It only takes a couple of minutes, and if you want to go harder, then you go 3 times a day or 4 times a day or whatever like this. So that habit may not be as hard or as challenging, but it's very effective. And if you don't have that habit in your life, you can expect to spend a lot of money and a lot of time at the dentist office. So, when you're somebody who doesn't, maybe doesn't take care of their body at all, what I mean? You're going from nothing. You're on the couch, you're in your tablet or your smartphone, and you're wasting a lot of mental and physical time. When you come up with the habit and you say, you know what, I want to create a habit in my life of just, taking better care of my body. Well, that's a very empowering habit that you need to get into. Like, people know that working out is can be very challenging. That's why most people don't do it, because they can, when you do it though, it can be very empowering. It can have huge rewards, huge benefits, for the immediate and the future, just like brushing your teeth, but it takes a lot more into having a habit of working out on a consistent basis and getting the results than it does, to do that. So I think, to kind of sum it all up, how I think, understanding neuroplasticity empowers you to rewrite not just your habits, but the very identity. I think that it just helps you create and help you create the ability, or help you create a bigger, stronger, more empowered type of habit. So that's kind of my take on it.
Yeah, I like it. I'm, just so everybody knows, C Square brushes his teeth five times a day.
I
Um,
wish I need to. I'm about to get
um,
these veneers, son.
oh my God. Um, I think I want to start off with, because this is what I truly believe. I believe that we associate with the thing that we believe empowers us or gives us power, if you will. So a lot of times, what we do is we associate ourselves with our job title. So if I've spent X amount of years in school and I receive a medical degree, then my name is Dr. Such and such. If I am a lawyer, then I identify myself as that. So when people ask me who I am, a lot of times what you'll hear is a person's profession or education at the forefront of all of that. I think because I have a philosophy, that's not who you are, that's what you do. And sometimes we confuse who we are with what we do. And then when we no longer do the thing that we do, we forget who we are, or we have struggled with who we are because we never knew. So understanding this notion of neuroplasticity means that I can rewrite the code in my head based upon how I see myself differently and then put forth the energy and efforts to practice it. We get to the notion of, like, we appreciate all of the successes that we have, but the failures seem like they carry a lot more weight. Well, here's the reality of the truth. I participated in both. I participated in every success I achieved. I also participated in every failure that I was a part of. The question is how. How did you participate? I probably realized when I go back and research in the thing that I was successful at, I probably was a very active participant. In the thing that I failed at doing, I was probably more passive than anything. So before I start coughing. So it helps me to understand that what I'm thinking in every moment in time factors in what I'm actually doing, not only what I'm doing, but how well I'm doing it. A lot of times we do the things that we feel good about doing. And then those are the things, excuse me, those are the things that we throw ourselves at to make sure that it works well. But then there's a thing over here that we don't like doing, we don't feel like doing, we don't even feel equipped doing the thing. But then we're kind of, we're gonna try it, right? Kind of goes back to what I said previously. Like, how long should I continue to do that before I realize that this relationship isn't for me? Same thing with the thing that we failed at some point we were just kind of like haphazardly doing a thing, whatever the case may be, and I'm gonna try it. Well, the word try means that I'm not necessarily committed to it. I am going to put some energy in it until I get the first inclination that it's not working for me, or doesn't empower me, or whatever the case may be. And then I'm not going to throw myself at the thing, and then I'm fail at the thing, and then I'll say that thing did not work. Well, it's not that that thing didn't work. You didn't necessarily work for it, not like you worked for the things that you were successful at doing. So, understanding neuroplasticity helps me to understand the way that I think about the thing matters, the way that I speak about the thing matters as well. A lot of times, the way that I speak about the thing comes from well, not a lot of times, it is the way that I think about the thing literally drives the way that I speak about the thing. So if you hear me speaking about a thing and I'm not speaking about a thing in a manner to which I am like I'm positive about it, that tells you what I'm thinking about it. So even within the space of community, we can actually be accountability partners and say, hey, why don't you like taxes that much? You know what I'm saying? That's me, transparent. If you ever hear me talk about taxes, I don't like them. So I don't talk positive about them. So why don't you do that? Like for real, like, questions like that, we can help each other. So once we change this thing, it drives this thing and drives these things. But I have to put it into practice. I have to practice the positive side of the thoughts that equate to the thing that I really want to do and be successful at doing. If I don't do that, if I don't change this thing and I call myself just doing this thing, that's a facade. That's not authentic. I'm just saying this because of the people that I'm around, but I still think the same way about it. So neuroplasticity helps me to understand that I can do it. I can change the way I think about the thing. I can change the way I speak about the thing, and I can change the way I approach the thing. And if I do it enough time, I start creating those thicker synapses, right? And they what is the phrase, the cells that fire together wire together. So when we fire these cells, this is firing and wiring, right? So the cells that fire together wire together. So as I am practicing this consistently, these cells, these neural pathways, they start firing together and then they wire together. And then ultimately, this becomes a habit that I'm not only just doing because it helps to reshape my identity, but I'm doing it now and I feel empowered doing it because now the information is flowing more fluidly.
Man, you broke that down a lot better than what I think I could have.
I don't know if I actually broke it down, bro, but I think eventually we got there. All right.
Yeah,
So
I
we got
definitely agree with that.
yeah. Um
Paradox.
and I greatly appreciate everybody who is listening. And again, if you got any questions, put them in the chat.
Please
We
do.
would love to entertain your questions. Also, if you have not done so yet, make sure that you hit that like button and make sure that you share it because again, this is stuff. Again, I wish I'd known this when I was younger. If I had known this as a 20-year-old man, I think my life could have been different. Not saying that my life didn't turn out the way it was intended to, but imagine if I had understood this, at 20 years old. Imagine if you had understood it at the age of 20.
Oh
So,
man, it would have
yeah.
worked great in my life.
Oh man, absolutely. Okay. So the paradox of choice and mental clarity. So we kind of talked about clarity a couple of weeks ago. And again, I want to make sure that everybody understand what a paradox is. And so an example of a paradox is like having too many options can lead to anxiety and dissatisfaction. Like let's just say when shopping for a pair of jeans, I'm just using that as or an scenario, a pair of shoes, Jordans, right?
Yeah,
When
Jada.
shopping for a pair of shoes, a person may feel overwhelmed by the variety available, leading to indecision and frustration rather than satisfaction. But options are good, right? What if
Yeah,
you only had
options
that?
are great.
Yeah, like what if you only had one? So now you start to see how one can, like, the presence of a thing can create a feeling of unwanted feeling on this side. So we got to kind of like look at it from that perspective. So um, when or how does the fear of making the wrong choice, going back to your Jordans here, how does the fear of making the wrong choice influence our ability to commit to decisions? And what steps can we take to cultivate a mindset that embraces imperfection and experimentation? I know that was a lot.
Mhm.
So let's take it in bite chunks. Like, how does the fear of making the wrong choice influence our ability to commit to decisions? And what steps can we take to cultivate a mindset that embraces imperfection and experimentation?
I will say this, and I remember being in the military and having leadership tell me, "Make a decision," you know? Even if it's the wrong one, make a decision, right? So I think what happens is over time is, at least for me, I think it helped develop a a lack of confidence, right? So I think what happened was it just fed into my lack of confidence and I didn't grow. So it didn't, I think it causes you, I think the fear of making the wrong choice overall, I mean, over the long term can, like I said, just cause a loss of confidence. I think it can be a lot, as I thought, I kept thinking about how I'm gonna go with it, right? 'Cause I know we got a lot of women in the chat.
You want me to
Go
go
ahead.
first? Yeah, you want me to go first?
No, I got it.
Okay,
It was just I didn't wanna offend anybody by just directly speaking to men, but
sure.
I kinda wanna just speak to men a little bit right now, right? But this can apply to anybody who needs a certain level of confidence in your workspace or your marriage or relationship or wherever you may be. But I think, as a man, and you're kinda looked at as somebody who's to take over the world, who's to protect and to provide and stuff like that. But when you can't make decisions and when you don't have that confidence, I think that affects so much other things in your life. So I think that when you are constantly going time after time and years after years of having the inability on the fear of making the wrong choice, I think again, I think it really affects your level of confidence. And I think that it doesn't help your confidence going forward. So now I'm back off of that. But I did want to say that I think that for men it's just hard. And it can make your life a lot harder when you are a whole grown man and you can't make a decision or you still have the fear of make a decision. Because the reality of it is we all make mistakes. You know what I mean? We all get things right. We all get things wrong. Hopefully, at some point, what'll happen is that, well, I guess I'm getting to the solution. So let me back up a little bit before I get there. But so I would just say the loss of confidence over time from having the fear of making the wrong decision. Um, and I think, when you're looking to get a solution, I think that sometimes what you have to do is you have to start building that by building that confidence. Sometimes you just got to start small. Sometimes setting time limits for your decisions can be a solution to this, right? So, all right, so I got to make a decision about this. All right, so I'm going to make this decision by this amount of time. And then you make the decision within that amount of time. You look at all of the pros and the cons, whatever it is you need to know, whatever information you need to have in order to make that decision. You put the time down and then you make the decision based off of that. So I think that's one of them. And then as you get, more confidence, then you start that increasing that time, where I mean lowering this, where maybe you make a decision within an hour, where now you're going to make a decision within a half hour. Now, granted, this definitely goes into whatever the decision is about. There are some decisions where you need to take more time. Before you go out there and spend a bunch of money on something, you need to think about. You may need to think 24 hours, like, you know what, do I really need this brand new car? Do I really need these new shoes? You know what I'm saying? So some things take a little bit longer to think. But overall, just to kind of sum it up real quick, this question right here, I think it can cause a loss of confidence. And I think One of the a step that you can do to help cultivate a mindset is just by in this situation starting strong. If you're having problem making decisions, then maybe put a timeline on it, and give yourself a certain amount of time to make the decision, and then make the decision and then move forward.
I like that. I like that response. This kind of reminds me of when I was in the army, and I had a saying I used to tell my soldiers because I never wanted my NCOs to not make a decision. Like I would tell them honestly, I prefer you make a decision and then learn from the mistake that you made in making that decision, as opposed to not making a decision at all and then get put at the position of parade rest where I tell you, when I tell you I don't need an overpaid private. So
Mm-hmm.
I said all that to say because a lot of times you see it in organizations as well that you don't want to create an environment that has a no fail mentality. Uh,
Yeah.
and in the army, there's only really one no fail job, and that's a parachute rigger, right? For obvious reasons.
Mhm. Air
Um,
traffic control.
well, yeah, that's true too. Right? That's
They
true
all
too.
along the same lines
They're
though.
along the same
Yeah.
lines, absolutely. And so, when a person is conditioned with the fear of making the wrong choice, they do nothing. A lot of the times, they do absolutely nothing. It renders them to the place to where they're literally incapacitated because they're stuck over analyzing, right? Analysis by paralysis. They're over analyzing the, you know, if I make this decision, this could potentially happen. Well, if you don't make the decision, that'll never happen anyway. So it's
Mm-hmm.
like they struggle in that space because they don't want to take the risk of making a wrong choice. But if they don't take the risk of making a wrong choice, they'll never achieve the risk of making a right choice. So all of that happens, and I love the fact that what you said on how to cultivate a mindset that embraces imperfection. I'm not looking for you to be perfect. I'm looking for you to be progressive, because if we keep that as a mindset, that progressive notion of living means that I can make a mistake, learn from the mistake, as long as I keep moving forward. So even in the job market, like if you make a mistake at work, like I used to tell my soldiers all the time, if you make a mistake, that's fine, as long as you don't kill nobody, I can fix it. I think that holds to be true in almost every place except bank. Don't mess up my money. I'm just saying, right? I think that holds to be true
That part.
in just about every place of existence. But even in that, it's like a keystroke and they can fix it. So in this digital world, fixing problems are a lot more easier now than what it used to be 20 years ago. If we embrace the idea of progression, which means I don't have to be perfect, I can be imperfect. And sometimes, in order for you to learn something new off of the beaten path, you got to try it. You got to take a risk and try it. That's how new processes are discovered. So, being imperfect is a thing, experimenting is a thing. I don't think we do a lot of experimenting. We got a lot of sheeple that want to follow what has already been done. So when this person shows up and says, "Oh, I want to be the latest and greatest of the TikToks," so I was just telling somebody the other day, like, you see you see creators on YouTube that has created a life for themselves that people dream about. I said
Yeah.
that's called the exception to the rule.
Mr.
And
Beast.
right, Mr. Beast, that's the
Mm-hmm.
exception to the rule, right?
Exception.
Phenomenal example, right? But exception to the rule. The rule is you got to commit yourself to it for about 10 years at a minimum, just to get to the point to where it surpasses what you're doing as far as your job is concerned. Like that's what most of the data is telling everybody. So if you're not ready to commit 10 years to it, then I mean, just make it a hobby. You know what I'm saying? Because that's really what you're doing. If you're looking to be the next, and I'm not saying that the next Mr. Beast isn't available. That's not what I'm saying.
Yeah.
I'm just saying don't go into it with the idea of, again, making the wrong choice, or perfection in following the path that somebody else has already forged. I'm not sure if Mr. Beast followed somebody else's path. You know what I'm saying? I think he may
Mm-hmm.
have forged his own path. So I think what you'll find when you talk to these people did things differently. They experimented. And a lot of times when you experiment, that's when you discover things. And in the space of discovery, that's when new creations exist. So I think all of those things factor into this question, because I think it's important to understand processes are important, right? Follow the process until you create the neural pathways for habit. but then don't be afraid to go off the beaten path and try something new. You don't have to stay on that path. Try something new. Step outside the box. Do something different. You know what I'm saying? If I created a life selling these cups, that's great. Go create your life selling microphone stands. You know what I'm saying? It
Mhm.
doesn't have to be the same thing that somebody else is doing. And I think that becomes important because we try to create cookie cutter people. Like Garfield, like I like talking about Garfield because his lifestyle is patterned after a TV show, My Three Sons, right? So he got three sons. And so imagine him trying to make them the exact replicas of himself.
Mm-mm.
I mean, I know that's not you, but I'm just saying,
Yeah.
could you imagine how difficult that would be? Could you imagine how frustrated they would be? Like, you're not allowing me to grow and be the version of myself that I was created to be. And that has to be a thing as well. So, a little long winded on that, but I think this is an important question,
Yeah.
especially when it comes down to our identity, because a lot of times we struggle in the space of identity because we believe we're supposed to be just like this person. No, every father is pleased to know that their son wants to be like them, but we don't want you to be like us. We want you to be the best version of yourself and let me help you get there.
Mhm.
That's really what we want.
Yep.
I don't know no father that wants their son to be just like them. I don't want my kids going to the army. Just being honest.
I
That's
did.
what did you really?
I wanted them to do one term. That was it. And I got my wish.
Yeah.
My oldest I think my oldest son did about 2 or 3. He did 9 years, but
Mhm.
yeah, I wanted all 3 of my sons to go in, and then when they went in, I was still happy, but when the youngest one got deployed, I was like, like,
Mhm.
this it hit a little different when your
Right.
son is deployed.
Right.
But there was something else you said too during this question that kind of got, I know it definitely got glossed over by some people, but some people may have gotten it. And this was a nugget for the leaders, and you pretty much was talking about the environment, where the environment to where soldiers or subordinates can um, be okay with making mistakes. So from a leader's aspect, from a leader's point of view, that's very important. You know, do your subordinates feel or have the ability to make mistakes and it don't go too left? Do they have the ability to make decisions? You know what I mean? And that their mistakes, regardless of how they turn out, they're looked at as a learning experience. So that right there was a whole little small section, I think, or good information for leaders too. So I kind of wanted to just tap on that real quick, just because. Sheesh. Yes, they do.
No, no, not you. I'm just saying
Oh.
to go along with what you're saying.
Mhm.
Parents need to ask themselves this question as well. Do your
Mhm.
kids have the ability to make mistakes? See, a lot of times, and I get it. I get it. We want them to listen to our teachings, but
Mhm.
we teach them lessons so that when they go out into the world, they implement the lessons. But we have to understand within the space of implementation, mistakes are going to happen, bad decisions are going to happen. The environment is not going to line up perfectly, just like the lesson that you taught. So they got to make on the spot decisions. So they're going to make some mistakes. They're going to do some things that remind you that they're your child. Just keeping it real, right? Are you going to harp on the fact that they made a mistake, or are you going to focus on the lesson that they learned in the mistake?
Mm. Leave it right there.
Yes, sir.
All right. So, unlocking your potential, transforming mindset. So, transforming your mindsets right here. This part right here, I think a lot of parents um, go into this thinking that my kids are going to be the best kids out there, right? So they start parenting in a lot of cases how their parents parented them, how they were parented, right? So I think right there, having the ability to transform your mindset about how to parent your kids and understand that they grow by making mistakes. They learn from making mistakes. Now they see it. So if you're doing everything from you, the helicopter parent or the lawnmower parent, you are in essence, you are a hindrance and you are hurting your child more than you know. And a lot of times it won't even be evident until they're teenagers or of age where you ready to pull your hair out and you feel like it ain't nothing you can do. So that's when it starts to rear its head, is later on down the road. It don't happen when they two, when they three, and you giggling, you know what I mean, and them saying little bad words and stuff like that. It don't matter. Ain't no big deal. You give them a band-aid and you fine. Kiss the
Hmm.
boo-boo. You there for all them everything. But right here, unlocking your potential when it comes to just this right here, if you can unlock that ability to be able to just not be that, and understand that your kids need you to allow them to think, and they need you to allow them to make mistakes, that potential, oh my goodness, you are going to be a better parent.
Yep.
Your relationship between your kids are going to be better, and they are going to be they're going to benefit, they're going to be better for it. So
Yeah.
like you said, I looked at this, I immediately went to transforming the mindset, but I was like, nah, unlocking the potential. Now I see why, you know, focusing on the unlock your potential can be a lot more, under focusing on that versus the transforming the mindset piece. So
Right.
I don't know, but when you brought that up, it just made me think about all of that, because
Because
man, my
that's
relationship got better when I was able to,
right. And
yeah,
everything you just said makes sense because at the end of the day, in our younger years of parenting, remember, maturity matters. So
yeah,
when we're young parents, we're immature parents. That's not a hit on parents. It
no,
just means that you did not know what you were doing. You
yeah,
were learning how to be a parent while they were learning how to be kids. And at
yeah,
the end of the day, we want to believe that we know better. And in most cases, we do, right? We just don't know how to be parents. We know
mm-hmm,
that because the life they live, we already live. So it's like we're teaching them the things that they need to grow. So, in other words, we're creating the process for their development in them. We're giving them the process. And then they got to go outside the house so that they can test the process. But when they test the process, that's when mistakes happen. Well, do you shotgun blast, when they come in and say after they made a mistake? Or do you like,
mm-hmm,
okay, come on, let's sit down and talk about it, right? What happened? Why did you make that decision? What were you thinking was going to happen when you made that decision? What did you learn from this lesson? Right? If you had to do it again, what would you do differently this time? So now they don't feel like, oh my God, I got to go in the house and talk to dad. Like, no, they're eager to come in and talk to you because they're looking to learn because they realize that, hey, I'm an honest parent. I made mistakes when I was your age as well. I didn't make mistakes. I made bad decisions. I'm going to call it what it is.
mm-hmm,
And I would tell my kids that right now. Granted, I didn't do that to them when they were younger, but as adults, I tell them straight up, look, I made a lot of bad decisions. I
mm-hmm.
want you to learn from the lessons that I learned from those decisions. I don't want to sit there and talk to you about the situation and that's a waste. Like I think that's what a lot of people feel that they're doing and that's helping. You tell them the details of the situation of what you did and things of that nature. Sure, it's a space of connection. What about the lesson that you learned? Spend more time talking about that and not about the situation where you made the bad decision.
Yeah, man, that was a good
Yeah,
one.
man. I think we got to get this one in because this is one of the things we promised in the beginning.
That'll work.
And so shadow work is a psychological and therapeutic process that involves exploring and integrating parts of ourselves that we often keep hidden or repress, collectively referred to as shadow self. This concept is rooted in the work of psychologist Carl Jung. And a lot of you guys probably remember Carl Jung from a lot of his old famous sayings and things of that nature. He believed that shadow consists of the traits, emotions, and desires that we deny or reject, often because they are deemed socially unacceptable or betray our self image. So I think that's important for us to consider because a lot of times we avoid the necessary work that we can do on ourselves on our own. So it's not just the work that you do in the space of therapy or coaching or whatever the case may be, it's a continuation of the work that you're supposed to do as well. So what emotional traits have we labeled as negative? And I'll start first on this one. What emotional traits have we labeled as negative, and how could embracing these shadows lead to greater wisdom and resilience? Well, I want to share this one real quick. I believe a lot of times, and I've been saying this for quite some time, I believe the expression of emotions are good. I want to make sure I'm saying that. But I must analyze those emotions. And if I analyze those emotions when I express those emotions, I am expressing what I learned from the analysis. That's step one. That's part one. But when we express it, if my expressions don't sound like yours, it is automatically deemed as aggressive, because I'm a man. So I can be passionate about a thing, and you guys been with me long enough. You hear how I sound when I get passionate about a thing. Well, I actually sound the same way when I'm disappointed about a thing as well, and I'm passionate about the fact that I'm disappointed in that thing. It actually sounds the same. You know, voice inflection may sound just a little, different, but it's the same thing. But when we label those things as being negative, or I label them myself as being negative, then now it is a thing that makes me regress. I suppress it. I keep it bottled up. And so that's a version of myself and I'm speaking from personal experience as I share this now. That's a version of myself that I keep in. But if when I do the work, the shadow work on me, and I ask myself the question, am I expressing raw emotions when my voice elevate just a little bit? Because I also know in the space of interpersonal connection, she can express herself. In fact, society says that she should express herself. But why does society don't feel the same way about me? Am I expressing just raw emotions? Or did I analyze the emotions and think about why I am upset, disappointed, whatever the case may be, compared it to the thing that I believe that I get my life principles from, and then attempted to have a conversation based upon that? And every time I went back and did that, the answer was yes, that's what you did. You wasn't expressing raw emotions. You was expressing the emotions, but they were analyzed compared to what was done wrong in the environment and how it only focused on one person and it omitted everybody else, which is what we call self-centered behavior. So then why is my emotions being labeled as negative? They're not explosive. They're not toxic per se. They're not none of those things. So once I really stopped and thought into that, I came to the realization me expressing myself is no different than her expressing herself. But the thing is, both of us should be able to express ourselves as long as we're analyzing the feelings that we have in the midst of the thing that we're expressing ourselves about. But if we express raw emotions, then we don't even understand, number one, why I'm feeling the way I'm feeling. And then that person has absolutely no idea what to do with the emotions that you just threw at him. So, or her. So now when we don't analyze the emotion, we just kick it out there. What we're doing is like and I hate, I don't, well, I use it. We're manipulating the person to move at the beat of how I feel.
Hmm.
And because how I feel was never analyzed, that means now it does not matter what the thing is. If I feel a particular type of way, I just lash out, that person moves. Now I have them under my control. But if we go and we analyze those emotions, now we make two decisions. Me, control my emotions if I feel a particular way about a thing and that thing is not wrong, or B, analyze the emotions. If the thing is wrong, now I have the opportunity to go have a conversation with somebody. And I should be able to have a genuine, regular conversation. But then if that person rejects all of the information that you're trying to share with them, do I care enough about that person to stay in the conversation for it to happen? And I think that's where we miss it. I think the answer here is yes, until it gets to the point to raw emotions are now being tossed back and forth. When the raw emotions are tossed back and forth, now what we're doing is we're not listening to anything because everybody is filled with emotions and nobody is thinking while they're talking. So I think within the scope of everything I just said, I may have answered all of that because when we look at those traits, we have to do the work on ourselves. That's what shadow work is all about. There's a version of me that I suppressed because I felt that it was socially unacceptable or somebody may have responded to it in a way that did not make me feel good about myself. So now I must go back and consider what the shadow himself, because I'm a dude, himself, what he is trying to teach me. Because if I never go back and talk to the shadow, If I never address the shadow, then he remains a shadow, and that's a version of who I am that never gets to be expressed and never see the light of day.
Yeah, you spoke to like emotions like on a broad scale. I'm a narrow mine down and give one specific one. And that's because I'm looking at the time over here. So what emotions or traits have we labeled as negative, and how could embracing these shadows lead to greater wisdom and resilience? Me, the one of the first things that came to mind after listening to your the first part of that before you gave up with asked the question was anger. You know, a lot of times it's like, man, stop being angry. What you mad at? You know what I mean? And those are some very anger is a very real emotion that a lot of people experience. Now, some people experience it more than others. Some people experience it a lot. Some people have a lot more things that trigger them and cause them to be anger more often versus other people. But I think that's one thing that we label as negative, but I really don't. And I think it's also sometimes looked at as uncontrollable. Because when you see Karen on the internet, you know, banging on somebody's car door or somebody's hood or running to go get the manager and they're all upset and stuff like that. Yeah, we look at it, but we look at that as being uncontrollable than it is. But there's that's not the only form of anger that we see. It's not always in the form of being uncontrolled. Sometimes it's standing in one place, gripping your fist real tight, squeezing yourself, just trying holding everything in. So anger, first of all, looks different. You know, and I think a lot of times, and what happens is when you have anger, what happens is that it's a it can sometimes be an indicator that maybe your boundaries have been crossed or something like that. So anger is just sometimes it's just an indicator. And the thing, you know, when it talks about how to embrace it and how it can lead to greater wisdom and resilience, if you embrace it instead of suppressing it, because I remember this, and I know a lot of dudes are like this. And you kind of hit on it at one point earlier, talking about having almost like having a safe place, because a lot of dudes and a lot of people, they hold that stuff in. They hold the anger in. And then what happens is they get into an altercation or something like that. And then now they explode. And then now everything comes out. Now everything that you've been holding in for the last 6, 8, 12 months starts to explode in doing this conversation. So I think instead of doing all of that, is you figure out a way to constructively channel your anger. So, you know, that kind of answers that part of it. So, what emotions have we labeled as negative? I'm going to say anger. And how could embracing this shadow lead to greater wisdom? I think if you embrace anger and you understand that this is nothing more than emotion and that it's only temporary, just like every other emotion, happy and sadness and all these other things, and you move in that direction and you channel that anger in a positive or not necessarily positive in a constructive manner, then I just think that, you know, it definitely can lead to greater wisdom and resilience. Because now instead of you flying off the handle and cussing somebody out and possibly getting into an accident, you're like, all right, well, bang. Okay, I ain't really like the fact that that person cut me off, but you know what? I got these kids in the back seat, and we got to keep it moving. So you know what? You know, maybe I pray for them or do whatever, but figure out some way to deal with that, get it off of your chest, and then get on driving on down the road so you don't have no accident.
Absolutely, absolutely. And keep in mind, shadow work is a way for you to unpack your bags, right? Again, I think everybody has baggage, and what right, and what we have learned to do is we've suppressed certain things simply because those things, those when they come to the forefront, has not proven well for us. So when we do the shadow work, it allows you to go back, look at those things, not only understanding why not only understanding that they exist, but also understanding why they exist and how that why affected you. That's the important part, right? Maybe there has been some type of thing, some type of event that took place when you was a child, when you was younger, when you was in high school, whatever the case may be, and you never had the opportunity to unpack it. You weren't around the
Mhm.
people who helped you unpack it. And so because of the suppression of that thing, it has led to the outpour of anger, bitterness, whatever that looks like. So shadow work kind of helps you to be able to do that. I'm not going to tell you it's easy to do, but I want to tell
Yeah.
you that, and we as coaches, we practice that all the time with our clients. We just don't tell them that's what we're doing. It's part of the coaching practice. So when we have you do your, some of the conversations that we're having, we're asking certain questions. That's part of what shadow work is. So I greatly appreciate your response. Looking at the time, you want to do true false real quick? Okay.
Yeah, let's do it.
Yep. Let's out these three true false, and we're just gonna call it a day. So
All right.
first and foremost, true or false. Neuroplasticity refers to the brain's ability to change and adapt in response to experiences and environmental stimuli.
Man,
True or false?
man, that gotta be true. Um, gotta be true.
That gotta be true. And
Yeah.
you gotta be right.
And these new terms for me too. We just recently talked about neuroplasticity and the shadow work. So those
Mhm.
both are, pretty new terms for me. So glad I got this one right.
But like you said, even though it's new, you knew what it is. You just didn't know that was the title of it.
Yeah.
So yeah, yeah, absolutely.
Because like when we seemed like back in the day, there wasn't a term for everything. It was just this is what we do. And it's like now everything has a term. So it's
Everything.
like, man, I know this and I know this and I know this. So people be
Mm,
talking about, hey, you know this? And I'm like, man, I don't know what you're talking about. Then they breaking it down, but man, I know exactly what you're
yeah.
talking about. Just didn't know he had a name for it.
Right. Right. All right. Question number two. Speaking of which, shadow work involves ignoring the parts of ourselves that we find undesirable or uncomfortable.
Um, I'm gonna say false. You talking about ignoring the parts of yourself. That's just right there. Don't seem right to me.
And
Um,
again, sir, you are right. That is
yeah.
absolutely false.
Especially stuff that we find undesirable or uncomfortable. Whoo, that's the accountability piece. You got to go in hard on this part. You last thing you want to do is ignore these things.
Mhm. Absolutely. Okay. Last question. Engaging in shadow work can lead to greater self awareness and personal growth by integrating hidden aspects of our personality.
Engaging in shadow work can lead to greater self awareness and personal growth. I say agree. I say I agree. I say the answer would be true.
Well, sir, if
True.
this was a test, you would have made a 100 on this test.
Hey, look at
Yeah,
that.
absolutely right. That's
Yeah,
true.
and if I would have missed one, I would have failed. I would have got a
That's a good point. That,
66.
that's a good point. 66, absolutely right. And so again, I want to make sure that people understand. Again, shadow work is not something that is easy to do.
Yeah.
So with you trying to do it at home, I'm not telling you not to try, but it's going to be a little difficult. You need something to push you outside of your original ways of thinking. And
Yeah.
so that being said, I think that leads us to our actionable advice. My bad.
Blow me up.
There it is.
All right. Hey, ladies and gentlemen, our actionable advice for this week is just going to be very simple because this is something that I need to do. I want you to do two things. Um, One, go back and look at this video, but also go back and look at the video on what was it? Now I'm having a brain fart. Coach gonna edit this out. Go back Go back and look at the video on I can't think of it. Darn, coach, what was that word, man? Give it to me real quick.
Neuroplasticity,
Yes.
but I don't think it was titled that though. I'm looking now.
Okay. Go back and look at the video. I don't know if it's titled, but what we'll do is we'll drop the link to that video at the end. Go back and look at that video about neuroplasticity. So that video combined with this video, I think could give you a good perspective about what all of these different things mean. I'm doing it personally because I need to get a little bit more information and a little bit more learned up on these topics. So my suggestion and my actual advice for this week is to go back and look at this video and or that video on neuroplasticity. And if you already got these topics down, then go back and look at two other videos and see what you can learn from, see what you can pull out of it. We're talking about unlocking your potential tonight and talk about transforming mindset. So even in the word, it talks about faith comes by hearing and hearing. So sometimes it's a good idea to go back and re-listen to certain things because it's going to hit different. So that's my actual advice for this weekend, for this week, and that's it.
Man, I love the fact that you brought the word into your response. I love that. I think I enjoyed this conversation. New terms, absolutely. New terms to go along with the new year. I think I got to go and research it. I think the video is why building bridges is the key to success. I think that might be the video in which it came from, but we'll verify. My actual advice again, um, understand. Go like Unc said. Go back and look at this video. Understand what neuroplasticity is, and then determine which aspect of your life that you want to change. Right? Do you want to change the way that you approach relationships? Do you want to change the way that you approach your goals? Do you want to change the way that you approach your spiritual life? Do you want to change the way that you deal with your children? Like, identify the thing. Like, be specific with yourself. Identify the thing in those relationships. Be specific on the type of relationship, but identify the thing that you do that you want to do better, or the thing that you do that's not so good that you want to improve on, and then identify the thought processes that you have in relation to that thing. Once you identify the thought processes, challenge the assumption of it. What is that thought root? What assumption is that thought rooted in? Right? Because in most cases, it's probably rooted in a lie. I'm gonna be honest with you. When it comes down to your identity, a lot of our identity, if left unquestioned, is rooted in a lie. Challenge that notion. Why did I assume, and I know where it came from, but why did we assume that because of my skin color, I got to work twice as hard and be twice as smart as anybody else? So, is that 100% true across the board? We understand that that may hold true in certain aspects, but those are not the areas of life that I choose to participate in, right? Now that allows me to fully expand, to expand myself within reason. So now that I do not have that limitation on me, I've tossed that aside. I don't have to be twice as smart or twice as work twice as hard as anybody else. I got to be twice as smart and work twice as hard as the person I used to be yesterday. When I change the dynamics to that, when I change the context of that thought to that, now that changes my approach. But then if I get more specific, in what? What do I need to be twice as smart in? What do I need to work twice as hard? And then as I start to change that, then I look at working versus being smart. Well, if I'm smart, I'm not working harder, I'm working smarter. So now I don't have to work twice as hard. I just have to be twice as smart. And then I learned the power of leveraging, which means that I need to understand where my pivot points at. Where can I leverage these things? What are the things I need to outsource? What are the things I need to bring in? So all of that can be true within the space of it. When we get to the point of challenging assumptions, when we get to the point of rewiring the way that we think about things, and then putting those things into practice, putting those things on our lips that we really do believe moving forward, then what ends up happening is that we create the neural pathways. And like I said previously, the cells that fire together will wire together. That is a scientific fact. And that holds to be true for every person out there. So stop saying I can't, because you can. And that's my actual advice for today.
Man, you was on it today, man. Really enjoyed the conversation. Seems like we've been hitting home runs here last couple of weeks, so it's always a great thing. Maybe it's the new year and we just doing great stuff, man. But again, shout out to the chat. Shout out to everybody who was here with us this evening. Really appreciate you spending time with us. Coach, again, it's always an honor and a pleasure to spend an hour or so with you. Each Tuesday evening, man. So again, brother, appreciate you for being you, being your authentic self. Ladies and gentlemen, we will be back again next week. Which will be, what is it?
The
18th.
yes, what you just said.
18th of February with another episode. We're gonna be talking about money around this, folks, around this piece, folks. So we talk about money a little bit. So bring your friends, tell them to come back over here, and we'll see y'all then. But until then, folks, again, see y'all next Tuesday, and we will see y'all Friday on the Hearts of Men podcast as well. So I think that's it. That's it. All right, we
That's it.
out.